Hello everybody, my name is Siege Fairy and I am making a video on Overwatch. That's why we're here in the training range. This is like the 6th time that I've tried today because I'm too bad at writing scripts or whatever. So let's hopefully get this right this time so I don't burn out my voice. I want to make a video specifically talking about the last Quick Play Hacked event, which as of recording happened about a week ago. If you are watching this in the far future or near future, or if you don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, it was Selectable Role Passives. Overwatch team has done this about 3 times where they do a Quick Play Hacked event where they change some fundamental aspect of the game, put it in Quick Play for like a day or two, get like tens of thousands, if not millions of games worth of data, get some feedback, and then they can decide if they want to change up the game in any way. As far as I know, they haven't actually implemented any of their Quick Play hacked events. They may have done something with like spawn timers and like the speed at which stuff goes, which was the first Quick Play hack. I hated that. But the Selectable Role Passives was really fun. It was the only Quick Play hacked event that I actually spent a significant amount of time in. I spent about 8 hours or so over those 2 days. And I have some thoughts. I'm going to ramble a lot about like my experience playing Overwatch and stuff like that. I've been playing since the first open beta weekend of Overwatch 1, so, 8+ years of experience. I'm a bad casual player, so also, there you go. I like it. I like it a lot. I like the idea of having some sort of customization that is mechanical and not just cosmetic, because I like playing characters in ways that are not optimal. Like, I like looking at a character, seeing what their skill set is, and experimenting with it to kind of figure out how I want to play the character. This usually doesn't end up, like, well, but it ends up well enough for me. Like, I've spent a lot of time playing Tracer. I'm not a very good Tracer the way that you're supposed to play Tracer. Like, I'm not very good at taking the off angles and just getting away and stuff like that. But I'd say that I'm a relatively good at surviving, at least for my skill level using Tracer. So I'm much more of a hit and run Tracer. I'm not as much of an assassin as you want your Tracers to be. But I can, like, be kind of annoyance in the back line, a peppering kind of presence. And it works out enough for me. Back when Tracer was categorized as an attack hero, I actually didn't like playing Tracer that much on attack. I liked playing her on defense, where I could go into the back line of like some sort of charging formation and just kind of pepper people's supports and whatnot. And if I have an ability to customize Tracer so that she is better at doing that, as opposed to the way that you're supposed to play Tracer, great. I would love to be able to have something else that like encourages me to play the characters that I want to play. So I like the idea. I do have a lot of problems with the execution, but I love the direction that Overwatch is thinking about taking the game, like the Overwatch devs are thinking of taking the game. I love this, and I want to encourage them. So I'm making a video talking about my experiences, my thoughts, etc. So Overwatch devs, if you run into this, good job. Thanks. So I think a big question that I have to really decide whether I like this change or not is if the change that they had in selectable role passives were implemented today, would I like it more than what the game is now? Maybe I didn't explain it. I can't remember what I did in this video versus the last time I tried to do it. Selectable role passives, what they did, they didn't take away anyone's actual hero passives. So like damage still have the reduced healing on targets. Supports still have their self-healing after a certain amount of time. And tanks have their 500 things that are on them, right? But they added a little radio button here so that you could change, or so that you could add a new passive to yourself. There were 3 different options per role, and they were role specific. I'm not going to go over all of those because they're not here, and I imagine if we see this implemented in some future patch or if they do another quick play hacked event, the options are going to be different. They're going to be tweaked a bit. But they had different styles of play that you could use with those passives. So let's use let's use someone as an example. Soldier 76, right? Okay, let's use Soldier 76 as an example. The damage passives that they had, one was increased ammunition capacity. So like instead of having 30 bullets in my gun, instead it was 20% more. So 30, like 20% of 30 is 6. So you'd have 36 bullets in your barrel instead of 30, so that you could more consistently just fire away. You'd have more uptime on your shots. You'd reload less frequently, etc. Right? So if I wanted to be more of a spray and pray kind of guy, that's what I would choose. The other option that they had was wall hacks. So if they were at critical health, so that would be critical health. I think it's 35% is the threshold. If I went over here, I would see them outlined the same way that you would see Hanzo being outlined if he used his Sonic Arrow, Widowmaker's ult, or Sombra's old passive, where she would just, see people who were below a certain threshold of health. So if I wanted to be kind of an assassin Soldier 76 and someone ran away and I wanted to like run into them and like chase them or whatever, I could see where they were. They were less likely to juke me. And then if I stopped getting wall hacks, I knew that they were healed beyond that threshold, either from self-heal, getting a health pack, or having their supports being able to heal them, whatever. So that would be a playstyle. And then the last one was if you ever got a limb, you got a 30% or 35% movement speed increase for a short amount of time. So if you wanted to do kind of a hit, what is it? Like a hit and run kind of style, where you'd run up, kill this guy, and run away before anyone could find you, that would enable that kind of play style. I really like the ability to customize the kind of heroes that you play, and I'll get into why in a bit. But the answer is yes. I think I would like to play with these options more than I would like to play without these options enabled. But there are two things that are kind of keeping me back from saying full-heartedly, yes, definitely. And they are, I think after a while, maybe a few weeks, maybe it's a few months, there would be an optimal passive per hero. So instead of having these different play styles enabled by these passives, you just run into the exact same problem that you run in today, which is you should play this hero like this one way if you want to be optimal. Maybe there's like 3 or 4 different play styles per hero, but like if you start playing outside of those styles, you're wrong. The same thing is going to be true with the passives. If you are choosing a passive that's not optimal for the hero that you're playing, you're throwing. That's how it's going to be seen. Either you're throwing or you're a noob. And I really don't like having noob traps in games where you're like, oh, this seems like it would be cool. Like maybe the extra ammunition capacity is best on Soldier 76, right? That's just the most optimal passive for Soldier 76. But hey, maybe I don't want to play that. Maybe I want to play this run and gun kind of play style. People are just like, it's unoptimal. You're not gonna, people are gonna flame you in chat, like in the game, whatever. You're throwing the game, it's just not gonna be fun. I'm sure that there are going to be heroes that can use multiple passives to enable different playstyles. Maybe some of the really lucky ones are going to be able to use all 3 of the passives, but I don't think it's going to be a universal thing. I don't even think it's going to be a majority thing. I don't think role passives are going to ever be generic enough. Either they're meaningful or they're generic. You can't have both. I think that's going to be a huge problem. The other problem is extra power level. I want the power level of the game to go down. I don't like having massive power creep in the game. In any game, really, but specifically in Overwatch, I don't like it. So those are kind of my problems. So there you go. Now, I want to talk about some ideas that I had. Like I think I said, but maybe I didn't. I've wanted some sort of hero customization in the game of Overwatch so that you could tweak the hero to fit your playstyle a little bit better since about 2018, right? 2018, 2019. Now, the ideas that I had way back when are very, very different than the ideas that I have now, part of this is probably inspired by the role passive discussion, because there was discussion about the selectable role passives before they were part of quick play hacked event. So I kind of was triggered into thinking of it that way. But I think a game like Overwatch cannot benefit from this type of stuff that you can do in like a MOBA, right? Like in a MOBA, if you've never played League of Legends or Dota or anything like that, generally you have 2 levels of customization that you can go with. One is your abilities. So Overwatch has all of its abilities, where like Roadhog has hook, he has trap, he has self-heal, and then he has his gun. Other heroes have their own abilities. They're kits, right? And MOBAs, you don't always start with all of your kit unlocked. You have to level them up. So if Overwatch were a MOBA, I wouldn't have my hook or my trap or my self-heal. I'd have to choose one of them. Which one would I want? Would I want my hook to begin with, or would I want my self-heal? Would I want my killing potential, or would I want my sustain potential? And then as you level up by getting XP or by time or by killing people, you'd be able to select your other abilities. You'd be able to make your other abilities better, etc., etc. I don't think this is good for 2 reasons. One, every time you'd get enough XP to level up, you'd have to go in here and you'd have to spend some time thinking about it. And even if it were second nature, that's still like a second or 2 that you'd have to go boom, boom, like hit a button, get out. Like that's still half a second. The other thing that you have are items. So like I think Paladins has a thing where you can say, oh, I want boots that'll make me move a little bit faster. Or I want this thing that'll give me a little bit more armor instead of health. Or I want this thing that'll kick in a self-heal or whatever. I don't think that this is necessarily that great of an idea either, because you end up having loadouts. And it's just like, hey, guess what? There's an optimal loadout. You have like 10 different items that you can use, and it's very obvious which one's optimal per player. It's the same thing as like the problems that I was talking about with the passives. But having that kind of thing, I think would probably work a little bit... that didn't work. I think that would work a little bit better than having the 3 selectable role passives, because you could be like, oh, I want a slightly higher movement speed. I want my self-heal to kick in a little bit faster to be a little bit more effective. Like, okay, cool. I think that would be okay, but also I don't think that they would really be that meaningful to select, and I don't think it's like what the Overwatch devs really want. I think they want meaningful choices, and slightly better healing on your self-heal versus slightly faster movement speed, I don't think are going to be the impactful changes that the Overwatch dev team wants. Back when the game was really early, when there were only like half the heroes that you have now, and you had 4 roles, you had attack and defense instead of just damage, it was a lot easier to think of the heroes not as heroes, but as the roles that they inhabited. Like, for example, healer is the easiest to explain. So supports, you had 4 supports. You had Symmetra. Symmetra was a support way back in the day. She didn't do damage. She was really only used on assault maps, or if you had like really big choke points that Symmetra could work really well for. There were a lot of things about her kit that were very different that made her better in that kind of playstyle. But if you're looking at healing, let's discount Symmetra because she's always discounted as a support, even when she was a support. And let's look at the healers, the actual healing-based supports. You had Lucio, you had Mercy, you had Zenyatta. Those were your 3 options. Lucio was really good if you wanted the speed boost, but let's just talk about healing. If you wanted the speed boost and you wanted to like really rush in, Lucio was your only option for support. And if you were okay with having like a lot of AoE support, but not a lot of healing, you're okay with that. If you wanted to do more damage, like you were a little bit low on the damage output, Zenyatta, still a good choice. You have your E, your Discord orb that you can just throw down. And then you could throw your orb on people and they could heal. It was also really good for certain types of heroes. So Monkey, Genji, Tracer, who are usually running off and you couldn't heal them from close up. Zenyatta, you could throw your orb on him. They would run wherever, and as long as they were still in line of sight, you could still be healing them passively, which was really good for like a dive comp, right? And then if you needed single target healing, and honestly, I would say the default hero to go to was Mercy. You would use your damage boost, but honestly, it was more, for me, at least always on my skill level, about the single target healing. So I would always look at what role I was supposed to be providing in my team. Was I supposed to be a tank? Was I supposed to be a support? Or was I supposed to be damage? This was before role queue, but like you didn't really have that many options to choose from. So if you wanted to do generic damage, Soldier 76 was good. But maybe you wanted to like go into a tank buster mode. Bastion, always really good, especially if you were on defense where you could just be a little turret. He couldn't move as a turret, so you basically just sat up and got rid of an entire sight line. Junkrat, also very good for chokes, so you just kind of sit there and pepper the entire choke with your primary fire, and no one could go down that choke. If you wanted a sniper, you basically had Hanzo or Widowmaker, depending on whether you needed that hit scan or whether you wanted more like burst damage. He had scatter shot instead of what he has now. But if you needed someone close up, you'd go with like a Reaper or a Mei, because they just do so much damage close up. Mei is someone that you would maybe want to use also for her utility, but like you saw them as like what they did instead of necessarily who they were. The problem that you have now is that you have a lot of different ways to do that. Like if you need AoE healing, you have Lucio still, but you also have Moira, who's like the healer. Like she pumps out the most like consolidated healing that I can think of, especially AoE consolidated healing. Brig does AoE healing, Baptiste does AoE healing. So you have all those options. If you need single target burst healing, Baptiste is still really good. Moira is still pretty good. Ana exists. Iari can do some stuff. Kiriko is really good as well. So now what ends up happening is you have a lot of different options, and basically there's like one or two different aspects of a character that you might choose them for. So like Kiriko has her cleanse, her Suzu. Ana has her anti-nade and sleep dart. Baptiste has immortality field. Lifeweaver has his yoink. Like you use them for their one ability, but like unless you're really good at using those abilities, it's probably not worth it. Like, do you know how many Lifeweavers I played with that are just, they frustrate me when I'm a tank and I'm trying to do stuff, and they yoink me away when I'm in the middle of doing stuff? It sucks. And they're not even trolling most of the time. They're just like, oh no, my tank's about to die, let me save them, you know? So instead of having that, now you kind of have one-shots, and there's so many heroes like one-tricks, and there's so many heroes that you kind of just want to focus on like one or two, you know? Like, if you're looking at playing like a Sojourn versus a Soldier 76, typically, I mean, most people end up talking about Cassidy versus Sojourn instead, but like, if you're looking at the spray and pray kind of person, you're going to be looking at Soldier 76 versus Sojourn, right? And it's basically what fits your playstyle better. For me, Soldier 76 does. I am garbage at aiming. I do not want to be responsible for missing my railgun, because I guarantee you I'm going to be missing my railgun a lot. That's just how it's going to work. So I like the more consistency of Soldier, where I don't have to build up my railgun, and just like every 6 seconds I have a little bit of missile that I can throw in, right? But even on tank, like on tank, the tanks that I play Reinhardt, I play Roadhog, I like Ramatra a lot, and I can play Sigma, but like Reinhardt, Roadhog, Ramatra, and then if I need a dive tank, I usually go Winston. That's like a half to 2/3 of the like roster that I just don't play at all. And there are some that I can't play, like Doomfist and Wrecking Ball. I do not understand how they play. I just cannot play these characters at all. I suck completely. I am throwing the game if I pick them. So yeah, you don't have the option of customizing how Soldier 76 works. If I want to play this kind of spray and pray, kind of like machine gun assault rifle style, and Soldier 76 is my dude, I'm stuck with Soldier 76's kit. Having some sort of customization for Soldier 76 so that I can change up how I play the game, great. But I think that the hero, like the passives, need to be based on the hero. And I don't want like role passives plus one or two like hero specific passives. Like if you had your 3 role passives and then Soldier 76 also had a passive that was like the April Fool's Day patch where he could like sprint and run at the same time. If that was like a passive that Soldier 76 could choose in addition to the other ones, I don't think that would be good. I think you just need 3, if we're going to stick with the number 3 passives that are unique to the hero. And you can have some overlap, right? Like let's say, let's see, let me think of an example. Let's say you have a turret passive, right? Like you have Torbjorn with his turrets, you have Symmetra with her turrets, and if you want to consider Iari's healing pylon, you can, I guess, depending on what the passive is. Maybe the passive is that your turrets are 50% more effective, so they do 50% more damage or more healing. That could be a passive that you have on those 3 different characters. And if you ever update the turret passive, maybe it doesn't apply to Iari anymore. Maybe you have it be something that's like 50% more health. Okay, that's annoying. Let's get rid of that. 50% more health. And it's like, okay, we don't want to give that to like Symmetra turrets because Symmetra turrets are super weak. Maybe you have to think of something else to give Symmetra instead. But that gives you a lot more wheels that you can, you know, tweak, and you don't necessarily need to make 3 unique passives per character. There can be some overlap, but I think that you need to consider each hero and give them pseudo-unique passives. I think it would be a good idea to like tie them to the abilities, but like if the abilities don't work, especially because different heroes have different number of abilities and different tweaks of abilities. Like for example, Zenyatta like doesn't really have any abilities. He has his 2 orbs, which are like more passives than anything else. So like you're gonna have to be a lot more creative about Zenyatta. But like Soldier 76, you could give him the spray and pray kind of passive. What are his other abilities? He has a biotic field, so if you want to make him a little bit more supporty, where he can like use his biotic field more frequently, you can have it like heal people more, like have the healing frequency be a lot more. You could reduce the cooldown, etc., or you could make it a bigger radius so you can use it like more as like a, okay, everyone get here. Maybe a combination of all 3. And then if you're looking at his last ability, it's like his missiles. I don't like the idea of making them do more damage, but maybe have like a bigger radius, more knockback, maybe more of a reward if you hit directs on them. You could kind of swap out how that works, right? Now, I do like the idea of passives over an active change to the ability. And the reason I say that is not from personal experience, but because my friend who plays Overwatch that I play with, he played a lot of TF2 back in the day, and he said a big problem with Team Fortress 2 when they introduced loadouts was that it took you like 3 or 4 deaths to really understand what the person's loadout was and how to play against it, right? And I don't want the passives to be that huge, right? Like, are you going to play differently against a Soldier 76 who's more supporty than a Soldier 76 who maybe has like a bigger radius on their missiles? Probably, but is it a big enough difference that you're going to be like sneaky killed one way or another? And the answer is, at the higher levels, yes, obviously. Everything's going to matter. Every single bit of customization is going to matter. But at the lower levels, I don't think so. If you know that Soldier 76 has a missile that it can fire, you're going to know that the missile is going to be important. Breakpoints are going to matter, obviously. Things like knockback is going to matter for positioning and whatnot. But at the lower skill levels, maybe even as high as like gold or plat or stuff, it's not going to be a big enough difference that you're going to have to change your entire play style to do it, right? So that's why I like the idea of having a passive as opposed to like having an active or changing an active. Like, for example, hey, do you want to play Mercy? Do you want her Guardian Angel? Which Guardian Angel do you want? Do you want the Guardian Angel that works as it does in the game today? Do you want the Guardian Angel that SK made for the content creator patch, where it brings the hero back for 10 seconds and they basically get to fight while they're respawning? Or do you want the Mirror Watch Mercy Guardian Angel, where you don't resummon anyone, you just explode a corpse? Which one do you want? I don't think that that would necessarily be good for the game, because those kind of changes, those are going to be very, very different. Now, if I remember the SK patch where you resummon someone with Mercy, I think there was some sort of indication that they only came back for a certain amount of time. I know for the person who was summoned back, it was an obvious indication, but I think it was also an indication when you were fighting them normally. And that does matter, because if someone's only back for 10 seconds and you can't really kill them, it's better to not waste your resources in trying to kill someone who's already dead, right? But there's certain heroes that are already kind of hybrid. Like, for example, Roadhog is already basically a big DPS. If you gave him less healing, like maybe got rid of his damage mitigation when he was healing, a lower health pool, and I mean, honestly, he'd basically already be a DPS. Malga, I actually really like the April Fool's Day patch where Malga, he was tiny Malga, and he had a lot less health because you could just run around everywhere. He was really hard to hit because he had a really low health pool. And because he had a really low health pool, he was a lot easier to kill than the Malga today. But like Sombra was already like designed in the early stages as a support. Bringing her back as like a support damage hybrid would not be that bad. Mei, people have talked about making Mei a tank forever. So you could like have a Mei tank, Mei damage, like not too hard. Like you definitely have to tweak it a bit. And maybe that's a direction that you can think about doing the passives on, is like, let's give a passive to Mei that makes her tankier as opposed to just a generic damage passive that makes her deal damage better, right? Really lean more into that hybrid type of style. And as long as role queue is kind of the default mode of playing Overwatch, if you give some of these people like Mei, who else might fit? Brig, maybe. Bastion, maybe. If you give them more of this like customization that makes them tankier, so that they can maybe fill the role of a tank a little bit better without changing any of their abilities, or at least the fundamentals of how their abilities work, maybe you can lessen how tanks work, you know, the immense amount of pressure that you get for being a solo tank, right? Maybe that is a direction that can make 5v5 feel better for the people who are super 6v6, you know? I should probably mention that as of recording, Aaron Keller has not made the like blog post that he has said that he will regarding 5v5 versus 6v6. So I have no idea if Overwatch team is thinking about this or not. or what they think about 6v6 versus 5v5. I don't want to get into that discussion. It's very heated, and I don't have anything that I can really add that other people have not added. But I do want to say that I don't think you can have both. I don't think you can have a 5v5 version of Overwatch and a 6v6 version of Overwatch. You're going to split the player base way too high, and you're going to have problems with balance. There's a lot of problems as to why I think you need to be one or the other. That's the only thing that I'm going to really say regarding 6v6 versus 5v5. Now, I have a lot of other problems with role queue and role passives and stuff that I originally intended to talk about in this video, but I'm like, it's a little bit too far afield. Instead, if anyone wants me to talk about it, go ahead and let me know. Like, I definitely can. It's going to be in this style because, like I said, I don't want to do the whole editing bit. I also not very good at the game, and I don't like writing scripts. I just rather talk extemporaneously. So basically, I've been thinking about this as a stream to nobody that I'm recording, and I'm just going to upload to YouTube instead. But one person who has a relatively nuanced take on role passives that I'm going to link down below is Spylo. Spylo has talked about the problem with role passives and the general gist of what Spylo has, and I want to expand on it a bit, and I will talk about it a lot more, is role passives are something that you're putting on the entire role. So it needs to be either so minor that it doesn't matter, or you're going to have it imbalanced. A notorious example of this is Hanzo. Almost every single version of the DPS role passive has like been absolutely useless for Hanzo. I would argue that even the reduced healing for Hanzo, the current DPS role passive, it's better. It's better than a lot of the other role passives that they made for Hanzo specifically, but like it's not good for Hanzo. It's not good for snipers in general. It's good for people who can dish chip damage from a distance. Reaper and Tracer are really good with it. People like Ashe are good with it because they have a dot. And even like Genji, I think, is pretty good with it. Or people who deal consistent damage, like a Soldier 76, maybe a Sombra. But like people who deal inconsistent but spike damage, not great. Even like AoE, like Junkrat or Pharah are good with it, a lot better than everyone else. So if you have a role passive, I don't even think that passives are necessarily, like role passives are necessarily a bad idea. The problem that I have with it is you can't be changing it up all the time. And if you do change it, if you do tweak it, you need to make sure that every hero who has that role passive that just got tweaked, they need to be tweaked to compensate for it. So if you change the role passive so that it's really, really favorable for like Soldier 76 and Sojourn, and it sucks for like Widowmaker and Hanzo, you need to buff Hanzo and Widowmaker in compensation. You either need to nerf Soldier 76 and Sojourn so that the role passive is like an increase to their power level, or you need to buff Hanzo and Widowmaker so that they can keep up. Those are the two options. And if you're making a change to a role passive, you're changing the entire role, and you need to look at the entire role and make tweaks to the entire role. And I think that's unfeasible. I think that's unfeasible from a hero design perspective. I think it is unfeasible from a gameplay design perspective. I think it changes way too many things all at one time just by hitting one number, you know? It's not bad in concept, but there is no way that you can execute this on a live service model. Like if you were making a game that never had any kind of updates or anything, or the only updates you ever had were new heroes, you never changed a hero's kit, you never rebalanced them, anything like that, yeah, you could make it work. But for a live service game like Overwatch or any other like MOBA or anything, having a hero-wide passive is just not feasible if you want the game to be like balanced or fun, because you're gonna have losers like Hanzo constantly. You're going to have people that just cannot use your passive effectively. It's a problem. If you build it into the kit, that's fine. So, for example, if you look at the two like hit scan snipers, Ashe versus Widowmaker, they play very differently. Widowmaker, absolute garbage at close range. Like this SMG, not good. Just, you can't really use it to kill people. If you're using your SMG, it's a panic. Like, it's a panic mode. That might work, but it's a panic mode. And the thing with Widow is her entire kit is built around the one-shot. It's part of the reason that you can't really take away Widow's one-shot. And if you do, Widowmaker is garbage. But you know what? Her ult, not that great. Not good. Wall hacks, okay. Like, it's situational. You can use it. Your team can use it to like plan a push, to like know when to, like you can punish people for peeking, which is really good for Widow specifically. But like ultimate wise, not great. Ashe, worse at everything compared to Widow. You can't one shot. You can't one shot as Ashe. You can't one shot headshot. She doesn't have it. She does have a significantly faster fire rate. So, like, you can do boom, boom. You know, that took a little bit of time. The robot, you know, an actual enemy is not going to stand still for you to two-shot someone like that. She does have something else that Widowmaker doesn't have with her grenade. You can get an AoE in there. Okay. But, you know, DPS passive makes it a lot better, but, you know, it's not really that good. You're not going to get that many kills from it. It's more for grinding ult charge. And that is where Ashe is really good. Bob, at my skill level at least, and I think everywhere, Bob is great. Throw in there, just destroys people. He's another hero on the field. He takes up some aggro, and he's great. A lot of Ashe's power is in her ultimate. Is that bad? I don't think so. I think they made Widowmaker. They give so much of Widowmaker's power into the one shot. They didn't give that to Ashe. Instead, Ashe has Bob. It's a difference in power. And you can do that same kind of thing with a passive, like a role passive. But whenever you have something super widespread on this, if you change the role passive in any way, you're going to have to change every single hero that has that role passive. Maybe you don't need to change them, but you need to sit there and you need to think really long and hard. You need to do a lot of testing. You're going to probably need to do a lot of patching. You're going to need to evaluate every hero that has that passive and see if they need to be tweaked. And not the kind of, oh, well, we changed the passive a little bit. Does Reaper care about it? No. You know, not. You can't just sit here and kind of do a, is this okay, yes or no? You need to sit there and think long and hard about it. So, yeah. So this is a little bit, you know, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. So, like, do I think that selectable role passives are good? No. No. I think they run into the exact same problems as the role passives, which is you're painting with a really broad brush. Heroes are not going to be as effective on it. Like oh, god damn it. I think that you're going to be painting with a very broad brush with the selectable role passives. A lot of heroes are going to have an optimal role passive, and if you're choosing anything else, you're throwing. Which is not the thing that I think that the game wants. which is what I want, that I think the Overwatch developers want, which is enabling different play styles with the role passives, the selectable role passives. You're increasing the power level of the game, which I do not like. And yeah, so I think there are a lot of problems with it, but I love the idea. I love the direction that the devs are thinking about going, right? I love the idea that they are thinking about adding more customization for the heroes, so that if the hero matchup that you're playing against isn't right, you have another option instead of just hero swapping. You can just tweak the hero that you're playing, right? I think there are other problems that you have to deal with. There were some usability and some UI problems. I think that having that level of customization is going to slow up some people. Like, you may spend 10 seconds thinking about what passive you want to go with, which at the beginning of the game isn't that big of a deal. It's fine. But if you're swapping to a different hero, you want to respawn as quickly as possible and be back in the fight as quickly as possible. And that can be a problem when you have one more element of what role passive do I want to pick, whenever you're also thinking about the hero that you need to pick whenever you're respawning, right? So I think that there's a lot of tweaks that you need to make, but I like the idea. I like the direction. I hope that the Overwatch team decides to iterate on it, and I hope I really do hope that they bring some sort of customization into the game. I would love it. I just want it to be hero specific, not something broad like role passives for the role, right? But even if they had a selectable role passive where you could tweak your character, I'd still probably like it. I'd still probably enjoy it. I'd enjoy being able to play different heroes in different ways enabled by that selectable role passive. And I'd love being able to enable a play style that may not be the most meta. So that's my thoughts on the experiment that they had. Let me know what you thought down below. And if you hate me and my take, let me know that too. No, seriously. Give Overwatch, give the Overwatch team, give the Overwatch developers whatever feedback you have regarding this kind of change. This is my version of feedback. I made an Overwatch YouTube video, Overwatch Devs. Hopefully it's useful. But yeah, give them feedback. They're not going to listen to you all the time, and I don't think they should. Like, listening to your fans about what they want in the game is not good if you have an idea of what you want in the game. But getting a vibe check, saying if they're happy or not happy with the changes that you're implementing, that's invaluable. Invaluable for a software developer. Invaluable for anything, really. But anyway, this is going to be me. Thanks a lot for watching, listening, whatever. I got to edit out like some of my weird tangents, but if you want me to talk about any other aspect of the game, let me know, and maybe I'll make another video. Maybe not. Bye!